Hey folks, this is JR with DIY Prepper. Welcome to the channel. As most of you probably know, the power grid's in pretty rough shape. A lot of it was built decades ago, and in between storms, wildfires, and equipment failures, there's plenty of reasons why people keep losing power these days, and when that happens, it doesn't take long for things like food and medications to go bad. That's why having a way to keep things cool without relying on the grid is so important. And a really good option for this is the Ecoflow Glacier Classic, which we're going to take a look at today. We're going to see what it can do and talk about how it could fit into your preparedness plans. But before we get started, I'd like to thank Ecoflow for sending this to us and for sponsoring us today. The Glacier Classic is a portable refrigerator and freezer that can run on battery power and is built for off-grid use. The one that I have holds up to 45 liters, which makes it large enough to store a good amount of food, drinks, or even temperature-sensitive medications. To put that into perspective, if you're just using it to store drinks, it can hold around like 72 cans. But even though it has a decent amount of storage, it's still compact enough to fit in the back of an SUV. It weighs around 51 pounds empty, but it comes with handles on each side, so it won't be too hard for two people to handle even when it's filled up. Now, when it comes to power, you can run the Glacier Classic a few different ways. You can run it using AC power from your wall outlet or a generator, and you can also plug it into a 12-volt outlet in your vehicle. But like I mentioned a second ago, it can run on battery power as well. When using its optional 298 watt-hour battery, it can stay running for up to 39 hours in fridge mode. The battery slides into a compartment on the side of the unit, and you can even recharge it using solar panels, which is a huge plus for preppers. That's nice since you can use it all day if you take like a trip to like a beach or a park. It can also power itself while you're letting a solar generator recharge or doing maintenance on a gas generator. Then you can also recharge it via USB-C or EcoFlow's alternator charger, and having that sort of flexibility is very nice. You can use it at home, on road trips, hunting or camping, and during power outages. The Glacier Classic also has 2 inches of insulation foam, so it's pretty efficient. Once it cools down, it'll draw very little power to maintain its temperature, especially if you're using it in fridge mode. And that makes it a great option to pair with a smaller mid-sized solar generator since it won't burn through your batteries just to keep a few things cold. And if you think you want to pick up a Glacier Classic or any of EcoFlow's other products, then be sure to use my link in the description below. So now that we've talked about what the Glacier is and how it works, let's go over what you can actually do with it, because for preppers and folks who spend time off-grid, a portable refrigerator like this one can be a game changer. The most obvious use, of course, is keeping food from going bad during a power outage. A lot of folks, myself included, have tried running full-size refrigerators off of solar generators, and while it's doable for short periods, it usually isn't the best use of your power. Fridges can use a lot of energy, especially if they're older or if you're opening the door a lot. On the other hand, something like this Glacier Classic is much easier to power for longer stretches. That means even if your regular fridge is down, you can still keep your most important items like meat, eggs, milk, or leftovers cold, or maybe even frozen, without burning through your whole battery bank. And depending on how long the power's out, that could end up saving you hundreds of dollars in food. The Glacier Classic also cools down fast, and since you don't have to fill it with ice, all that space can be used for actual food instead of frozen water that's just going to turn into a mess later on. Another potential use, especially for folks with medical conditions, is using it to keep medications cool. If you or someone in your family needs insulin or any other temperature-sensitive medication, then you already know how big of a deal that can be during a power outage. A lot of prescription meds need to be kept at specific temperatures, and if they get too warm, they may not work as intended or even at all. And having a backup dedicated fridge like the Glacier Classic gives you a safe, reliable way to store those medications without having to worry about ice packs or spoiled doses. Then there are other situations where this could come in handy. One good example is bugging out. If you're heading to a secondary location like a bug out cabin or even just a family member's house, the Glacier Classic can go with you. It'll fit in most vehicles, and you can plug it into your car's 12-volt outlet to keep it running during the drive. That means that you can take fresh or frozen food with you and not have to worry about wasting everything that you have. Then the same goes for camping, hunting, and fishing, because most of us don't just sit around waiting for the world to end. We actually get out and do stuff, whether it's spending a weekend in the woods or heading out on a fishing trip. Having a fridge that doesn't require ice is a huge convenience. You don't have to constantly buy more ice, drain out water or worry about soggy food. And if you're out hunting or fishing, this can give you a way to keep your meat or fish fresh until you can get back home. Then another underrated use for this is road trips. You can load it up with drinks, snacks, and groceries from home and avoid overpriced junk from gas stations or random grocery stores in the middle of nowhere. Then there's also day-to-day use. If you live in a rural area or just have like a backup pantry in your garage, the Glacier Classic can serve as a secondary fridge or freezer. You can use it to store overflow groceries, home-cooked meals, or even garden produce that you haven't had a chance to can yet. And since it's portable, you can put it wherever you need to. Some folks even use portable fridges like this one for backyard barbecues and other outdoor gatherings. If you've got guests over and don't want them running in and out of the house constantly, just stock this with drinks and let folks help themselves. It keeps everything cold without the need for ice, and if you've got the battery installed, you don't even need an extension cord. We actually used a portable fridge a couple of weeks ago at my son's birthday party. He wanted ice cream cones instead of cake, and we're able to keep the ice cream and popsicles cold without any problem. So these things are very useful for those kinds of situations. Then the Glacier Classic has some special features that help it stand out from other portable refrigerators. First off, one of its biggest advantages is its dual zone design. Inside, there's a removable divider that lets you turn the interior into two separate compartments. Each of those can be set to a different temperature, so you can use one side as a fridge and the other as a freezer. Or if you want to use the whole thing as one big fridge or freezer, you can just take the divider out and store it on the bottom of the lid. It just clips into place. And having that option is nice since it can allow you to preserve both fresh and frozen food during a long-term power outage. Now, when it comes to controls, you have a couple of options. First, there's a panel on the top of the unit with a digital display that lets you adjust the temperature and check the battery level. And then you can also connect it to Ecoflow's app using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. That gives you the ability to control the fridge remotely, which is pretty handy if you're running it in an RV, a shed, or anywhere else that you don't want to have to keep walking out to check on it. And even if you don't use the battery every day, having one on hand gives you some peace of mind during a blackout or road trip, and then you can also use the battery to charge USB devices like cell phones. Then the build quality of the unit's solid as well. The Glacier Classic feels tough, and the lid can be opened from either side, which makes it a lot easier to access in tight spaces. You can also remove the lid entirely, which is useful when you're loading it up, especially if you have something bigger like a turkey that you have to get inside of here. But like with anything else, you'll get better performance with a fridge like this if you're smart about how you use it. First, if you know that you're going to need it for a road trip or think a storm could knock out power, go ahead and pre-chill the unit. Plug it in and let it get down to your target temperature before you have to switch over to battery or solar, because the colder it is before the power goes out, the less work it'll have to do later on. You also want to chill or freeze the items going into it if at all possible, because trying to cool down a bunch of room temperature water bottles or warm leftovers is going to take a while and burn through a lot more power than just maintaining a cold environment will. Then, like with other refrigerators and freezers, try not to open the lid any more than you have to. Every time that you do, warm air gets inside and the compressor has to kick back on to cool it back down. That's especially important if you're running it off of battery power, so if you're dealing with a blackout, try your best to plan ahead and get what you need in one trip instead of constantly rummaging around. If you're using it outside, keep it in the shade and out of hot environments. It'll work best when it doesn't have to fight high ambient temperatures, so don't leave it in a hot car with the windows rolled up or out in direct sunlight unless you absolutely have to. If you're camping or tailgating, set it up in a shady spot or throw a light colored towel over it to reflect heat. You could set it up under an awning or canopy and put your panels out in the sun. Then if you're running it in freezer mode, try to keep it full, even if that means adding a few frozen water bottles or ice packs, because a full freezer is going to hold its temperature a lot better than an empty one will, and those frozen bottles can even help maintain the temperature inside if you have to switch it off temporarily to save power. Also take advantage of eco mode if your food's already cold and you're just trying to maintain the temperature. It reduces compressor cycles and helps extend battery life. Then it's always a good idea to give the unit a wipe down and let it air out after trips or outages, because that'll help prevent mold and odors later on. So overall, I think the Ecoflow Glacier Classic is a solid option for anyone looking to add a reliable portable refrigerator to their preps, whether you're using it to keep food from spoiling during a blackout, to store medications that need to stay cool, or to avoid having to buy ice on your next road trip. It's a good thing to have around. Once again, I'd like to thank Ecoflow for sending this to us and also for sponsoring us today. If you want to check out the Glacier Classic or any of Ecoflow's other products, then be sure to use the link in the description below. And if you want to see some reviews of some solar generators that would go great with something like this, then click one of these videos. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.